Well, hey guys, welcome back. We are in John chapter 18 today. We are now entering into the crucifixion of Christ. And so we're entering into that pivotal moment of Jesus dying on the cross and rising again. And I wanted to just take a moment before we jump in here to John 18 and then continuing the next few days through this, the account of the crucifixion and the resurrection of Jesus. And just noting that when you look at the four Gospels and you look at them as they lay out for us the account of the crucifixion and the resurrection, you're going to find different details. You're going to find different little nuances to how they even present things. One of the things for me at times it's just hard and frustrating, even if I'm honest, is that it's not laid out perfectly with these chronological, this happened, and then at 2:53 p.m. this happened, and then at 5 p.m. this happened. It just tells us what happened. And then when we go look at one of the other gospel accounts, it's like, wait a minute, I thought this happened here. And sometimes it's very difficult for us to produce what they call a harmony of the gospels and laying them out. Well, I want to encourage you just to understand this. When you read through these, the important thing to get is this. They're trying to communicate a truth to us. They may even lay things out and not even specifically in order sometimes of how they happened. That wasn't the main thing for Gospels, these type of biographies, the way they're recorded then. They have a message they want to get across. And so keep that in mind as we look here at the Gospel accounts of the Gospel of John's account of the crucifixion and resurrection. Well, hey, here in John chapter 18, it talks about how Jesus is left to the Garden of Gethsemane. And this is where Judas is going to lead this mob that's going to come to arrest Jesus. Judas leads this mob to him, and we understand that he kisses. There's this kiss that he does. He kisses Jesus to indicate this is the one you're to arrest. But this is not much is even mentioned of such a thing in this account. What is mentioned is really interesting. Jesus comes and he says, "Who are you looking for?" And they say, "Jesus of Nazareth." He says, "I am he." And it says the people step back and they bow to the ground. Then he comes and he says, "Who are you looking for?" And they say it again. And then Jesus says, "Leave these alone. Let these go. I'm him. Take me." Then we see Peter. Peter boldly draws his sword out to defend Jesus. Jesus had told him, "You're going to deny me 3 times." And I'm guessing this is in Peter's mind. Here's his moment. He's going to prove to Jesus he would die for Jesus, just like he said. Or in this case, kill for Jesus, or at least cut an ear off. So he pulls out the sword and he goes after, he cuts a guy's ear off, and then Jesus rebukes Peter. He rebukes him and he tells him, "Shall I not drink from my Father's cup?" I'm sure Peter was like, "I don't know. How are you? I don't know exactly what you're getting at here." But he tells Peter to put the sword away. And he's telling Peter, "I have been destined for this. This is the will of the Father. You're not going to just take this sword out and by force keep me from fulfilling what God has called me to." Well, from there, Jesus is taken on to Annas. Before Annas, he was the father-in-law of the high priest Caiaphas. But while he's there, we see Peter in the courtyard. Peter's in the courtyard, and it says that while he's being let in, a servant girl spots him. The servant girl spots Peter and says, "Hey, aren't you one of his followers? Aren't you one of the disciples?" And Peter denies this. Later on, it says, while Peter is by this charcoal fire, he's warming himself. And by this fire are also servants of the high priest and officials. And they get a look at Peter across the way, looking at him at the fire, say, "Hey, you, yes. Aren't you one of his?" No, I'm not. And then another time, he is asked if he is with Jesus, and he denies knowing Jesus again, and the rooster crows. And we read from the other Gospels about Peter's response to this and how it just breaks his heart that he did the very thing he said he wouldn't. He denied Jesus. Earlier, he had drawn a sword out. When there was a mob with weapons, here he's warming his hands by the fire, and he denies him. Well, before Annas, Jesus is questioned, but Jesus just basically says to the people questioning him, it's like, hey, why don't you ask the people who heard me? I taught in public. I didn't ever hide anything. I don't have some secret conspiracy. I've taught publicly why I'm here and what I'm doing. And Jesus gets smacked by one of the servants of the Annas, the priest there. And Jesus is then, after this, he's led to Caiaphas. Caiaphas, the high priest. Caiaphas then, of course, sends him on to Pilate. And Pilate wants nothing to do with this. He wants nothing to do with this. Pilate, in his dealings with Jesus, he says, I find no guilt in him. I find no guilt in this man. He seeks to release Jesus, but he also seeks to appease the Jews. And so there is this custom that he would release a prisoner. And they ask, hey, do you want to... They ask Pilate for this, to release a prisoner. And he says, how about Jesus, the King of the Jews? And the priests, the high priests, get the crowd, the people, to go against Jesus and to ask for the release of Barabbas. Barabbas, a criminal. Barabbas, who is guilty, is released. I find it interesting, I think actually fascinating here. Barabbas, which if you just look at the language, means son of the Father, son of the Father. Jesus is the Son of God. The Son of God here is condemned. He is innocent. He is innocent. But the one who is guilty, the one who has the crime, is let go. And I don't know if it's meant to, but I see this as a picture of us. That we are set free, and He takes our place. And He is the one that ultimately would lay down His life for us so that we could be called the children of God. Tomorrow we're going to be in John chapter 19. We're going to continue looking at this story. Actually, it'll be Monday, so I'll see you then.